Saul was a farmer's son. Born and raised in the humble surroundings of Gibeah, he lived in Gibeah, a small town nestled in the hills of Benjamin. Life was simple and unhurried, with days marked by the rising and setting of the sun. He worked the land alongside his father, Kish, learning the ways of the earth and the secrets of the seasons. They tended their sheep and goats, their days filled with the rhythms of nature, the bleating of the animals and the whisper of the wind through the fields. Saul was a strong young man, taller than most, with a presence that commanded attention. He had kind eyes and a gentle heart, always ready to lend a hand to those in need. He was content with his life, unaware of the grand destiny that awaited him, a destiny that would take him far beyond the fields of Gibeah.
My son, listen carefully. Take a servant with you and find our donkeys. Search far and wide across the hills and valleys. Do not return until you have found them. This task is of great importance.
One day a shadow fell upon their peaceful lives, a sign of the challenges to come. Several of Kish's donkeys went missing, a troubling event that disrupted their routine. These were valuable animals, essential to their livelihood. Kish was distraught, his worry etched deeply into his face. He called Saul to him, his voice heavy with worry and urgency.
Yes, Father, I will find them. I promise I will not return until they are safe.
With a heavy heart, Saul accepted the responsibility. Saul prepared for the journey ahead, gathering his belongings and steeling himself for the unknown challenges that lay before him. Saul took his father's words to heart. His father had always been a man of few words, but when he spoke, Saul listened intently. He knew how much these animals meant to their family. They were not just livestock, they were a crucial part of their livelihood. He chose a trusted servant to accompany him. This servant had been with the family for years and knew the land well. Together they set out into the hills, following the winding paths. Days turned into weeks. The journey was long and arduous, but they pressed on. They searched high and low, but the donkeys were nowhere to be found. The terrain was unforgiving and the weather often harsh. Discouraged but determined, Saul refused to give up. He knew the importance of perseverance and resilience. He wouldn't return to his father empty-handed. Failure was not an option for him.
My master, there is a man of God in a nearby town. He is known for his wisdom and insight. He is a seer, a prophet. People from all around come to seek his counsel. People say he can reveal hidden things. His reputation precedes him, and many have found answers through him. Perhaps he could tell us where to find the donkeys. It might be our only hope.
Very well, let us go and find this prophet. We have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
As they journeyed, a thought occurred to Saul's servant. What if the prophet could help them in ways they hadn't even considered? Saul hesitated. He was a practical man. He had always relied on his own strength and wisdom. He wasn't sure about seeking out seers. It was a step into the unknown, something he wasn't entirely comfortable with, but he was desperate. Together they decided to seek the prophet. Sometimes faith requires a leap into the unknown. They arrived in the town weary and dusty from their travels, their clothes tattered and their faces marked by the harsh journey. The sun was setting, casting long shadows on the cobblestone streets. As they entered the gate, they asked some women if they knew where to find Samuel, the man of God. The women smiled knowingly, their eyes twinkling with a secret understanding. They had seen many travelers come and go, but these men seemed different, driven by a purpose.
Yes, he is here today. The townsman's voice was filled with warmth and assurance. He is going up to the high place to offer a sacrifice. The ritual was an important event, drawing the community together in reverence and hope. You will find him there. The directions were clear, pointing towards a path that led to the heart of the town's spiritual life.
They followed the women's directions, their hearts filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. The marketplace buzzed with activity, but their focus was solely on finding Samuel. As they approached the high place, they saw Samuel standing tall and dignified, surrounded by the townspeople. His presence commanded respect and attention. Even from a distance, they could sense an aura of authority and peace about him. It was as if the very air around him was charged with a serene power. Saul felt a surge of hope. His heart, heavy with the burden of their quest, lightened at the sight of the prophet. Perhaps this man, this prophet, could help them. His reputation as a seer and a man of God preceded him, filling them with a sense of anticipation. Perhaps he could guide them back to their lost donkeys and back to their familiar life in Gibeah. The thought of returning home with their mission accomplished brought a glimmer of relief.
There he is. The recognition in their voices was tinged with excitement and urgency. Let's go speak with him. The decision was made, and they moved with purpose towards Samuel.
Yes, Master. Let's hurry. Their steps quickened, driven by the hope that their journey was nearing its end.
Unbeknownst to Saul, God had already spoken to Samuel. He had prepared Samuel for this very encounter. He told Samuel that he had chosen a king for Israel, a man from the tribe of Benjamin.
Tomorrow I will send him to you. You are to anoint him as ruler over my people.
Samuel listened intently, his heart filled with awe and wonder. The next day, as Saul approached, the Lord spoke to Samuel.
This is the one. This is the man I told you about. He will shepherd my people.
Samuel turned and saw Saul, his tall frame and kind eyes standing out from the crowd. Samuel's heart stirred. He could see the hand of God at work.
Welcome, Saul. The Lord has chosen you.
And so a simple farmer's son began his journey toward a destiny far greater than he could have ever imagined. Samuel approached Saul.
Don't worry about your donkeys. They have been found. And you, Saul, son of Kish, have found favor in the eyes of the Lord.
Saul was taken aback. He had come seeking help finding his father's donkeys, not favor in the eyes of the Lord. He couldn't understand what this prophet was talking about.
But sir, I am only a Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel. My family is the least of all the families of Benjamin. Why are you saying these things to me?
Saul's humility struck Samuel. He saw in Saul a heart that was not driven by pride or ambition. This was a man who was willing to serve, a man God could use. Samuel took a flask of oil and poured it over Saul's head.
The Lord has anointed you king over his inheritance. You are to go before my people Israel and save them from the hand of the Philistines.
He then gave Saul specific instructions on where to go and what to do. He assured Saul that God would be with him. Saul was overwhelmed. He had come searching for lost donkeys and found himself chosen to be king. It was more than he could comprehend. He couldn't imagine himself as a ruler, a leader of men. He felt small and inadequate, but a spark of faith flickered in his heart. If God had chosen him, surely he would equip him for this task. After the anointing, Samuel gathered the people together.
People of Israel, behold your new king, Saul.
But the people were skeptical. They looked at Saul, this unassuming farmer's son, and wondered how he could possibly deliver them from the Philistines. Some openly mocked him. Others remained silent, their faces etched with doubt.
I can feel their doubt, their rejection. Am I really ready for this? Do I even want this responsibility?
Saul, sensing their doubt and fearing their rejection, slipped away quietly. He went and hid himself among the baggage. He wasn't sure he was ready for this. He wasn't sure he wanted this responsibility. He longed for the simplicity of his former life, for the familiar rhythms of the fields and the comfort of his father's house. Samuel searched for Saul, but he couldn't find him. Finally, God revealed Saul's hiding place.
There he is. Saul, come out from there.
Samuel brought Saul out and presented him to the people once more. This time, something had shifted. As Saul stood before them, a sense of destiny seemed to settle upon him. He stood taller, his eyes shining with a new purpose.
This is my calling. I must embrace it.
The people witnessing this transformation began to respond. Some cheered, their doubts replaced with a glimmer of hope. Others remained cautious, waiting to see how this unexpected king would lead them. But one thing was clear. Saul was no longer just a farmer's son. He was the Lord's anointed, chosen to lead Israel to a new chapter in their history. As Saul left for home that day, his heart was heavy with the weight of his calling. He knew his life would never be the same. He was leaving behind the familiar comfort of his old life and stepping into the unknown. He would face challenges and opposition. He would be called upon to be courageous and strong.
This journey will be difficult, but I am not alone. The Lord, who has chosen me, will be with me every step of the way.
He would guide him, strengthen him, and empower him to fulfill his destiny as the first king of Israel. And so, with a mix of trepidation and hope, Saul embraced his new path, ready to follow wherever God would lead. Saul's story is a powerful reminder that God often chooses the unexpected. He sees past outward appearances and into the depths of our hearts. He looks for humility, for a willingness to serve, for a heart that is open to his call. And when he finds it, he is not afraid to entrust great responsibility to those who might seem insignificant in the eyes of the world. Like Saul, we may feel inadequate or unprepared when God calls us to step out in faith. But we can take comfort in knowing that he equips those he calls. He will give us the strength, wisdom, and courage we need to fulfill his purpose for our lives. We need only say yes and trust in his plan. For when God calls, he also equips. And from humble beginnings, he can do extraordinary